Hey y'all, it's Jacqueline back with UnPC Reality. I did take a little bit of a break over the last, about week and a half since I put out some content. I have been keeping things up to date on TikTok as much as I can, but to give y'all some background, I have spent this past week and weekend moving to a different house. So hopefully that will allow me a cute little space once I get everything organized to be doing video podcasts from here on out. And it's like just in a much more peaceful, kind of quiet spot. I did have a lot of street noise and things like that in my old place. So I think this will actually be really conducive to the podcast, but as it pertains to just my life in general, things kind of had to be put on hold for a little while I did this stressful move. Pretty much everything is organized on my front as of now, so I am ready to get started. Also, I just really, I want to put out content that's good and engaging. And while there are a lot of Housewives shows on right now, some of it's kind of at a little bit of a lull. And I'll kind of go through the reasons that I say that as we review some of the new shows for this week. And I did kind of just skip over last week altogether. Unfortunately, you're not going to have a whole lot of content from me as it pertains to any of the episodes for last week, but I'll reference them as I go through the pod today and subsequent podcasts for this week, because I will be referencing back to some things that I've watched, and I'm all caught up on all of the series thus far. So really the top thing that stuck out to me this week was Beverly Hills, so I thought I would get started talking about that. So today is Monday, November 27th. We are just hopefully coming back from a fabulous Thanksgiving holiday. I did have a lot of fun. My boyfriend and I went over to his sister's house and had a good lunchtime / dinner celebration. We watched the Cowboys game because I am here in Texas. No, I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm a Houston Texans fan. Go Texans. I lived in Houston most of my life, but I am in the DFW area now. And I have been dating a diehard Cowboys fan for a long time. So I kind of play for both teams these days. Anyway, we had a great holiday, kind of quiet, and just kind of got things a little bit more organized around the house, like I said. We've had a busy last couple of days, weeks, weekends for that matter, packing everything up and unpacking and moving. You all know how it goes. So at any rate, I am now ready, I think, to get into some of my hot takes from Beverly Hills. So I watched this week, and we kind of open with some boring stuff. I can't remember exactly what the first thing to focus on was, but quickly get into Crystal. They show her, and she's got stuff going on with her brother. I guess her brother had a broken engagement as a result of him ostensibly being forced by Crystal's mother and Crystal herself, apparently, for that brother to come to the United States during COVID. And then I guess the fiance didn't have proper clearance to do the same thing, which led to a rift, which I guess has now led to a breakup between them. And I think Crystal's kind of, a little bit, to blame or caught in the middle. And there's some conflict as it pertains to that. Really, just in general, the brother thing, the topic seems a little forced. It seems like a forced way to give somebody camera time and relevance. We've talked about this quite a few times as it pertains to Crystal. And I think I've come to the determination, I just truly feel confident in the fact that, and I've heard things to this effect, truly, from producers and other cast members and stuff, I don't think Crystal gets a very good edit. And I don't know why necessarily. I don't know if there's just not a lot on the cutting room floor that's riveting aside from what we're seeing. I I kind of find that hard to believe. I know that they film for such a great length of time compared to what we end up seeing. You know, a 20-minute scene, we'll see 2 minutes of that scene. You've heard that so many times over all this Bravo talent. So we know that that's the way that it works. And if this is what you're left with, I find that very confusing. I mean, that is not interesting to us. Nobody cares about Crystal's brother. We don't hardly even know the person. He's been in and out of the fold of this show for, I guess, for her whole career on the show. But I mean, to be fair, we've barely cared about Crystal. Crystal has barely had relevance on this show, and she is a cast member. And I've seen her enough on the outside world, you know, interviews and cameos and things, and I've heard enough to know that it seems as if she's a pretty great and down-to-earth person universally. I've heard stuff about her being a sports fan, just things that you would never even think of. And I don't think anyone of Rob, her husband's clout, would suffer any serious fools. I think she probably is a pretty well-adjusted, normal chick. And maybe that's her detriment. You know, maybe she's like a little bit too normal and that doesn't make for the greatest TV. I think she stands to be one of my favorites, and it's just a matter of that edit. I really do think that. I thought she put a bad taste in my mouth when she couldn't really come up with any good reason as to why she got into it with Sutton. What was it, 2 seasons ago? I just have stuck on that because nothing she said made sense. And she was badgered about it, and she said something about like it was dangerous language that Sutton used or something. And it was essentially much ado about nothing. And I don't feel like anybody pressed her enough to be accountable to that, because it really did seem like she was caught essentially way blowing something out of proportion. And when she had to answer for that, they just kind of didn't focus on it as much as I felt like maybe they could have. And the whole thing about her losing like a big group of her friends before she joined the show, I have questions. I have Crystal related questions, but I'm also thinking either she's too normal for TV, or somebody in the producer realm of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills like doesn't like her, or finds her boring, or has it out for her or something, because what we're getting just doesn't really seem like it makes a lot of sense to me for somebody that's, again, a main cast member. No one really cares about the dang brother, and the whole thing just isn't that relatable to me. If I had siblings, because I am an only child, none of their opinions would matter on who I was with romantically. I know that that's not like as standard in American custom, and that is very standard in an Asian custom. You know, there's much more arrangement and family involvement with who your like permanent significant other is going to be, and you know what the expectations are. I've been friends with a few, you know, Asian girls and stuff of my friends of mine growing up, and their families were universally the same. You know, there was a lot of pressure and expectations on them, and there was a very high value in marriage and who you were going to marry, and positioning yourself not so much for love but for security. And I think all that can go on, and I think it's so perfectly okay to say that that's something that's commonplace in Asian culture without being somebody that's actually in Asian culture myself. I just don't relate to that. That's not how I would operate my life. So it seems kind of silly to me, and I'm sure a lot of us. You know, your sister doesn't like your girlfriend, or your sister wants to have a closer relationship with you and your girlfriend. Like, so what? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. The Sutton stuff in general, I mean, first of all, y'all, as a former alcoholic, I can tell you unequivocally, and I don't try to make like blanket unanimous statements about these things, but I mean, undoubtedly, Sutton was absolutely hammered when she was talking in her kitchen or dining room or whatever with Kyle. That whole conversation, the name him, that was the work of a drunk. And the way that she was combative and the tendencies that she has, it just all reads drunk. It just reads drunk. And she knew what Kyle was alluding to with, is everything okay? And you're acting off, just as much as Sutton knew what, or as Kyle knew what Sutton was alluding to when she was like, is everything okay with you? I mean, they both know what they're talking about here, but they're not going to be the ones to verbalize it themselves. Kyle isn't going to say, you know, I know you're alluding to the fact that I'm having marital problems. And Sutton's not going to be like, I know you're alluding to the fact that I'm hammered as fuck and I may be an alcoholic. I mean, these are things that are not going to get said. And honestly, I'm sitting there looking at the Kyle and Sutton interaction with Sutton being hammered and thinking, gosh, isn't this reminiscent of the limo scene with her and her sister, Kim? You're drunk and you're an alcoholic, you know, and nobody says it, but now we said it type thing, or whatever it is she said. Like, it was the same thing. It's once again Kyle just hammering herself against a brick wall where nothing is going to get done. And that brick wall actually happens to be close to Kathy Hilton. So it's just an all-around lose for Kyle. And the best thing that she could do is what she is doing, which is, you know, stick up for herself, hold her ground, and kind of, you know, run about her life as if she has very little trust or concern for Sutton, because right now she really doesn't have any reason to trust Sutton. So anyway, Sutton ridiculously hammered in that scene, and she only represented her side of the story when she goes to retell it to Jennifer Tilly. She presents herself as the concerned friend. She doesn't say, oh, by the way, I was Liddy City, I was 18 vodka sodas in, or vodka ocean sprays in, or whatever the hell. And on that topic, I feel like the producers, as they often do, wanted to give Sutton a side friend when the season is going to be rough, I think, for some people, or when somebody's going to be a bit outside of the group of the other ladies that are on the cast. They will, you know, send somebody in to play with them, basically. Doesn't hurt that Jennifer Tilly is Jennifer Tilly, obviously. And I think she would be a shoo-in, again, obviously, as a potential new cast member, but I say no. Not only is it not going to be beneficial for us to see through the Sutton storyline and to see her be put in uncomfortable situations where she has to answer for her own actions. For this reason, Sutton does not need an ally right now. And Jennifer Tilly seems like the type of person to keep it nice and tell people what they want to hear. And if she wasn't that type of friend, she wouldn't be Sutton Stack's bosom buddy. That is what Sutton wants. She wants, you know, a mirror reflection almost, or somebody that's not going to challenge her. And I just don't think that translates to somebody that's going to be good on TV. I think, you know, just because they're famous names, famous actors, we've proven this time and time again, it does not mean they're going to make for great housewives. A lot of them, you know, are so media trained that they're impervious to looking as foolish as some of these other women. I could go on and on and on, but I do not think, and I think they'll try to do it. I do think that they will try to put Jennifer Tilly on the show as at least a friend of formally next season, if not a full-fledged cast member. And I don't think that they should. I think that she's gonna fall on deaf ears. I think if you want scenes with her and Sutton and the horse and having cutesy lunches and baby talk voices, I mean, that's great, but that will be all you get. Erica, I really do love seeing her on this season. I love seeing Erica in this down-to-earth spot, leaps and bounds over the Erica Jane we first met. And that's not to say that, I want to see somebody struggle or unhappy or it pleases me in some way that she's going through this. That's not the case at all. I just think the juxtaposition of what her story was versus what it is now and what she's had to do to overcome that and the lessons that she's learned towards becoming, quite frankly, a less insufferable human being are really, really relatable and fun to watch. I really do. And she just handles the hits in life in a very relatable way. It's not always squeaky clean. She doesn't always say the absolute best thing. She's not even always going to try to be the fan favorite. I mean, she's said a lot of things that have straight up either made her look bad or put her foot in her mouth or whatever. But she does stand in her truth. I really do. I thought the mother and daughter thing was cute. I mean, you have to understand, she was so veiled up when she first came on the show. I mean, we know she has a grown son. We have never seen him. We know she has an ex-husband out there somewhere. Very little about that. We know that she has parents, a whole family. This is the first even glimpse we're barely getting of it. And all of that was because I think of a certain protection of her lifestyle and a protection of Tom. She wasn't going to bring somebody on the show that was going to ask questions to her on camera of that relationship. Now, it doesn't matter. The cat's out of the bag and all the things are known. And even still, when the mom is like, well, how many times were you at that office? And this, that, and the other, immediately shuts it down. Just so aware of culpability and the legal recourse, and how everything on that show can be held against her. And she's really having to kind of fight that line between those two things. So seeing all this, I mean, it's like a fresh cast member because there was so much of her life, of her history, of her background that we were just never going to know as long as she was with Tom Girardi. It's a very interesting story. It's coming together in a relatable way. I mean, all of these circumstances are relatively absurd, but the way that she's handling the stress of these situations on a basic level, I think is interesting TV at the very least, and can kind of show you something about who she is as a person, about how we should conduct ourselves when it comes to, really just being, I think, having your trust be completely reliant on one single person and having that totally broken down. Her mother relationship just the nature of it, the fact that she has kind of a situation where, her mom and her raised each other. Her mom had her at a very young age. There's a lot there that I can relate to. My mom was 18 to almost 19 when she had me, so there's a lot to be said there. So, all of those things, it's just interesting to watch those dynamics sometimes. And when you have had challenges in a mother-daughter relationship yourself, and you can see those things where it's not like a carbon copy of your relationship, there are some similarities and a lot of differences, but you can see how somebody else deals with it and hasn't been defined by it. And, that's really a very helpful thing. And I can say, personally, speaks to volumes to why I watch these shows. Because I can relate to it and say, like, that's not exactly what I went through, but that's pretty much exactly how I feel. Now let's watch as she guides herself through it. And that really rang true for me, especially around the holidays. I'm not going to lie to you. Family is always very present on my mind around Christmas and Thanksgiving. And, that's just the way it is. And I don't have the best relationship with many members, if any, of my family. But in particular, a challenging, strange relationship with my mother. So seeing that after, no communication over the holidays and stuff like that, just selfish behavior that I'm constantly having to deal with and make sense of in my own head. Seeing that play out on TV in a different story, it makes you feel less alone. So here's to anyone else that had a little bit of sadness over the holidays. Again, like I said, it's nothing major, but it is something that I have dealt with, my whole adult life when it pertains to holiday get-togethers and things. There's just expectations that I might have that aren't necessarily met, and it sucks. And it's nice to know that, we can all kind of come together in that and be, a little Bravo fan family. So anyway, not to get too mushy and kind of move it right along, I just, my notes, essentially I'll read to you for the rest of it. I said her mother relationship coming from a very young mother where there's a certain element of raising each other is definitely relatable. And mothers we can only stand in small doses, definitely can relate to that. The difference is, I suppose, is Erica's mom, I'm more like Erica's mom, and my mother is more like Erica, kind of the more cold, withholding, generally emotionally crippled, unavailable one would probably fall towards more my mother in this case. But that's just my story. Dorit, I did want to talk about that. Not too terribly much to say, but I do see in the limited amount of time that we have her in this episode, more so than ever before, really. Because I feel like when it first happened, the robbery stuff, she might have been trying to minimalize her coping or her feelings behind it, just a little bit for her confessionals and stuff. I don't remember feeling like she was maybe as affected as I thought that she should be. And I remember thinking, well, maybe this is still shock. And it probably was. I have no frame of reference for anything like that. I've never dealt with something that was so traumatic, at least not in that way. And, everyone's going to be a little different in terms of their processing of those sorts of things. So maybe, it's taken a little bit of time to really even come to terms or come to the point where you're processing through those emotions. Obviously, it's an extremely, extremely scary thing. I'm not going to make a big comment because I already kind of have in a previous podcast about the 10 grand or whatever that she subsequently lost after that robbery in a subsequent robbery when she was out shopping. I think that's a ridiculous story. And I'm just going to move along because I don't want to say that I don't believe her because I don't know, but seems odd, but you could really tell in this recent episode that there was no acting going on, that she was, very uncomfortable about this crowd situation. And for something as minor as that, looking into it, that's not a big thing. It should have been something that's not even relating to a home invasion, you know what I mean? But when you have those PTSD triggers, that crowds and lack of control and all of that stuff, I think that's part of it for her. And you could tell that she was trying to play it down. I can tell after years and years and years of watching Housewives, when they are playing up their emotions or trying to sequester them for cameras. And it really seemed to me like she was trying to push it down. Because yes, she was talking about it, but not too much. Her whole demeanor changed once she understood what the terms of the event were going to be. And she kind of grinned and bared it, which, to be quite honest, I thought was amazing. You know, now, who knows? We're probably going to hear about this event and how no one thought about Dorit in the future, probably at the reunion, if not in subsequent episodes. I don't know. You know, so jury's not totally out on that yet. But for Dorit to feel the way that she felt for valid reasons and to grin and bear it and, you know, be a trooper and get through the event is just about more than I can say for, I think, any other housewife that's pretty much ever been cast. I mean, I just can't, I struggle to think of another one where if the situation was exactly identical, there wouldn't have been some sort of group freak attack, blaming, screaming, refusing to go into the event, stomping feet in limos, you know, something would have happened. So for her to just kind of be a trooper, and not just be a trooper, but and attend but go above and beyond, do more than the bare minimum, actually dig deep and have a much needed conversation, it seems like, with Garcelle, the host of that event, to kind of make nice and clear the air about whatever's going on. And yes, I know all of that is for cameras as well. But, like, you know, she came and then some, I guess, is my point. And I thought that was admirable. Dorit's never been my least favorite, but she's definitely never been my favorite. So I like to give credit where credit is due when I see things that stand out to me as good or bad. And I thought that was impressive. Like I said, none of us really know what it's like to go through something like that. At least I hope not. And if you do, I hope you're dealing with it. And I think she'll be okay. Now, as for her and PK, I don't know. I guess more to be revealed. I never thought that was going to be the world-ending, longest-lasting, love meant forever love connection that they thought it was anyway. So I don't really care too much about it, but yeah. The other thing, she did look great also, Dorit, in that outfit. I really love her new hair. I love the brown. Some people have said it makes her look older. I don't know, one way or another. I don't tend to agree with that. I think she looks the same age-wise. I just think it's a flattering look for her. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just said Dorit and Garcelle's conversation seems like two people that have never been that close, are never going to be that close, and are nitpicking to have some material for camera. They've both been through things. I just don't think there's enough foundation there to worry about it too much. So, again, yeah, sometimes I like to just kind of glance at my notes because I do make quick ones just to make sure I've covered kind of all of my points. But, yeah, essentially, I don't really have too much to say about either of those cast members in general. I mean, much of what's discussed is not like shocking revelations. So the most shocking thing to happen to Dorit for sure was that home robbery thing, and I think we're going to continue to see the ramifications of that play out for a while, obviously in her marriage this season. Garcelle, I said so much is made about this whole thing with Erica and Jax. I don't remember adults caring this much about kids' perspective when I was growing up. Like, none of my mom's friends had great concern about literally anything to do with me. So much so at times have changed and all of that. I get that, you know. But it's like, can we move on now? I mean, really, like, they've talked. Jax is good. Jax was good to begin with. Garcelle was good to begin with. She's just using it as kind of a, I don't know, a talking point to make somebody else kind of look shitty, which is Erica in this situation. I don't really ever think she cared that much about that to begin with. Maybe she did, but I don't think she does anymore. So it just kind of seemed like, can we let sleeping dogs lie? Maybe so, because Jax went up to Erica. But then, that's what I was thinking. And no. Erica didn't go up to Jax. So let's drag this on still. We can't leave this alone. No. Garcelle will drag this on for that reason alone. And to that I say, Garcelle, go on a date with a man or something. Like, seriously. Shut the fuck up. Seriously. You are just as dry in the vaginal department as you are in the storyline department. And I'm not overly educated on the statistics of missing or kidnapped females, but is there a big disparity in the attention ethnic women receive for this? I guess I'd have to actually watch this movie that they're going to the premiere of to fully educate myself, but I didn't really understand or necessarily appreciate the distinction. Sorry, I know that might upset a few of you, but that's just how I felt about that specific part of it. I don't know why everything has to be so specific to race. I don't know. She could be in any movie and do any number of things, and all of those girls would support her. She didn't give a lot of information in her introduction of the film for me to go on, so I just thought that was just my one little comment about that. And then Denise Richards comes in, unpaid. I've heard this, and a surprise guest. So, very random. And I guess it's just, obviously it's to stir the pot. Obviously there's going to be a continuation where her and Erica get into it, I believe, probably next episode. That would be the only thing that makes sense based on the trailers and stuff we've seen. And she's in that kind of casual outfit. I don't know why everyone gives Denise Richards such a hard time about her freaking outfits. For one, she looks adorable in all of them, and they're all appropriate to the circumstance, I think. I've never noticed her dressing ridiculously inappropriately. I've noticed Erica Jane dress what I thought was way too far or ridiculous or inappropriate. I think Denise Richards dresses like a normal person, and I think that's maybe part of the problem. But yeah. So anyway. There is a point to her coming on the show, and I think more is to be revealed next week. Like I said, I'm just not really sure what the point is yet. Like, specifically what Denise's motivation would be. I think if we knew that, we would know what the purpose of her cameo is going to be. Now, as far as Kyle, I am starting to like her new attitude. She's been walked all over by Mo and Kathy to her serious detriment, and is probably just fucking not living in her own, or not living for her own happiness anymore. And I'm here for it. Wouldn't have said all the same things to Sutton that she did in that scene between them. She was defensive, but she had a right to be when Sutton is clearly throwing a Kathy friendship in her face and is really just trying to gather information and gossip more than actually help or support Kyle in any way. Information disseminators are dangerous. Information is currency they operate in, and they use us empathetic, caring, concerned people almost as a veil to get information, like the confidant with ulterior motives, essentially. And really, I guess that essentially wraps it up. I'm going to keep this one short. I am going to be putting out another larger podcast covering the latest with Salt Lake, as well as Southern Charm tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for listening to UnPC Reality.